Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Duke of Italy, and welcome back to another video. And today we have something really important to discuss. Now, I don't really want to beat around the bush that much, but so in quarantine right now, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have a lot of free time on your hands. And if you don't, that's cool. Please continue watching because this is still a pretty important announcement. But a lot of people probably are pretty bored right now, and they're probably watching Friends or some other sitcom for like the third time in a row, and they're running out of things to do. First of all, skip Friends and watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, or Seinfeld, or Curb Your Enthusiasm, or show it some actual comedic substance there, because you'll get a kick out of those much more than Friends. Also, watch new movies if you have a thing. But one of my best interests, as you guys probably know by now, is music. And so I have arranged a entry level music listening list here that is kind of derived from Mucore. A lot of it's derived from my own personal tastes, and a lot of it's just derived from things that I've seen people recommending. But I basically like at least every album on this list here. I arranged it in a way that you can kind of pick and choose what to listen to here, and I'll just leave a brief description on everything here. I think everything here is at least good. A lot of people would like some of these more than others, and a couple of these you guys might not like at all. Like, I definitely picked a couple things on here that are a little deeper into your listening for this whole thing. So if you want to get into more music, definitely watch this video, because I think it's something people can definitely take the time to do, because if you just listen to an album a day, then you can get this done in less than a month. I think all of these are under an hour long, except maybe a Tool record I'm going to get into, but none of these are that long. There's no swans on here. Nothing on here is so crazy that it takes me like a serious sit down to actually get into. But all of it's got some substance to it, and it's all pretty good. So without further ado, let's just kind of get into it. I arranged this in a way where on the far left, you've got mostly alternative rock, and then you've got sort of progressive stuff right next to it. And then I have sort of a miscellaneous column there. It's kind of just different sort of like subgenres to pick out here to kind of get into more things like that. And then the next column, I have sort of an extra alternative where it goes one step past the alternative that was there, where you reach post-punk, shoegaze, and a little bit of post-rock, and as well as emo. It's just stuff that's like basically you take the idea of post-punk or alternative rock and you go one step further. And then you have sort of entry-level, kind of moodier picks here. Some like definitely a lot of lo-fi elements, a lot of folk elements. And it's stuff that like I think a lot of people would, I guess, enjoy the vibe of, to pretty much quote what I hear people saying now. And then finally I have some hip hop picks towards the end there that sort of cover, it's definitely a more modern angle, nothing there's from the 90s, but I think it's definitely some stuff that people can check out that would enjoy a lot. So I'll just break down from left to right what you guys should check out. And this is by no means the best album list for each individual artist here. There are definitely some albums here that are not on my favorite albums list, and definitely for the artist itself, I think a lot of these albums are not as good as an artist's personal best, but this is the best way to get into it. And also, I could totally include like death metal or black metal picks. Like I would include Philosophem as an entry-level black metal album, but I don't think that that's a great entry-level pick for metal. I think that like once you listen to more heavy stuff and then maybe get into Venom or something like that, then you could get into Burzum or Dark Throne or something like that. But that's just this is just a comprehensive way of getting into a little bit more music than you probably already into. And the most extreme parts on this list are not that extreme. Like, I guess the most extreme albums on here would be Dope Throne and Spiderland, but I'll get into those. So basically, I think the first two you should start with here are in the middle on the far left. So The Bends by Radiohead and The Blue Album by Weezer. So these two records are some of the first albums I ever got into. First of all, Weezer was like the first band that I like really tried hitting hard and comprehending like a lot of the things they made. Blue Album is a total classic. There's not a single bad track on it. Every track on it is really fun, and it's got a good amount of energy. It's got enough variation where nothing ever feels old. You've got a lot of differences there with In the Garage, which is really fun. It delves into surf rock at one point. I love Only in Dreams, which is the final track, and I couldn't possibly glance over this album without mentioning the singles. Buddy Holly, the Sweater song. It just hits enough areas where you definitely get a comprehensive look at what Weezer's trying to hit there. Honestly, they never really reached that point again in their discography, but it's totally a great entry point into rock music. Also, the opening track, My Name is Jonas, is phenomenal. Probably one of my favorite opening tracks on an album ever. And then you get The Bends by Radiohead. Now, I gotta mention, this is a bit of a downer album. If you don't like more sad music, don't listen to this. And my dad, actually, I played this for him one time. He said it was too quiet for him. He said he was gonna fall asleep, but he was driving, and he's super into Journey and albums that are like escape, pretty much. So if you aren't ready to listen to an album, skip The Bends. But after a second listen for me, I was totally into The Bends. The only sort of hiccup I had to get through is that High and Dry and Fake Plastic Trees are right back to back. But this album has no duds on it. It's fantastic. So The Bends, it's a really good record. Obviously not the best Radiohead album. A lot of people put it like towards the lower end of their list, but Radiohead's got a lot of great albums. So it's actually one of my more favorite Radiohead picks. Personally, my favorite's Kid A, but definitely listen to The Bends first if you've never listened to an album. Obviously, if you like Creep, everyone likes Creep. It's a good song. But no one really cares about Pablo Honey as an album. But listen to The Bends. The Bends is a great pick. Black Star is an awesome song. Fake Plastic Trees it's just heart wrenching every single time. Definitely listen to The Bends. It's a good pick. And right above that, you got Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins. This album, it's not quite grunge. I would describe it as grunge at points. It's definitely alternative, but it's a super good album. It's really Smashing Pumpkins at their best, and it definitely delves into a lot more psychedelic elements. It's a little drony at points. It's just a really good album. Today is probably my favorite Smashing Pumpkins song, except for Mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is an amazing song. Just the guitar tones are so cool here, and then Billy Corgan and James and Iha on guitar is just phenomenal. And I couldn't really mention this without the drum playing by Jimmy Chamberlain. He's just fantastic. But it's a good solid album. I'm definitely gonna mention that album later. And at the bottom here, you got Quebec by Wien. Now, if you ever heard someone mention the song Ocean Man, if you've seen the SpongeBob movie, that is from the band Wien. It's off their album The Mollusk. A lot of people like The Mollusk. I also like it, but I don't think it's as good as Quebec. I think Quebec is a super strong album. The opener, It's Gonna Be a Long Night, is kind of Motorhead inspired. It's really fun. My favorite track on it is Transdermal Celebration. It's kind of just like a track that's about appreciating nature in a way. At least that's the way I took it. But it's really fun. So this column is kind of a progressive rock entry level option here. And just right off the bat, start with King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard's album Nonagon Infinity. Super awesome album. I recommend this to all my friends. It's basically, and the whole concept behind it is that every song loops into each other and the last track loops back into the first. So it's basically 9 songs that go around and around. So it's really fun in that regard, and it's got energy the whole time. It's back-to-back bangers. Just totally give it a listen. It's rarely in 4/4. I think a lot of the songs on are in 7/4 or 7/8. But totally give it a listen. It took me, I think, a second listen to like truly grasp how fun it was, but it's totally great entry point into the King Gizzard discography. Super awesome album. And then after that, you're going to want to get into Moving Pictures by Rush. Now, this is not Rush's best album. A lot of people might say it is. I'd say it's not. But it's just a really fun album. The opener, Tom Sawyer, if you don't know it, like, what are you doing? You've been under a rock for 50 years at this point. But it's such a fun album. You got Red Barchetta. And YYZ is probably the best introduction to, like, instrumental prog, like, ever. Those little cymbal hits that started off are super fun. An absolute must for anyone who likes music is to listen to Moving Pictures. I could play this for my brothers who don't even listen to rock music, and they'll enjoy this album. Even with a song that's like 8 minutes in the middle. I forgot the title of it, but I'll say it in the video right now. But it's Without a Hitch, great album. Totally give it a listen. After that, right underneath is Fragile by Yes. I think Fragile is like the first like actual progressive rock album anyone should listen to. It starts off with Roundabout. The track Roundabout is actually how I got into music pretty much as a whole. Everyone was making the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure memes a couple years ago, and I listened to the song as a whole, and I genuinely believed for a time that it was the best song of all time. So I looked up the best album by Yes, because that was kind of how I found music at that point. And then I found Close to the Edge. Close to the Edge is my favorite album of all time. So Fragile is just so, so good. Heart of the Sunrise is really gorgeous, and it's got like, man, you got the keyboard playing is excellent, and Squire on the bass, so good. Man, I can go on and on about how much I love Fragile. It's a landmark of an album, absolutely essential for you guys to listen to. And then our last pick on this list here is 10,000 Days by Tool at the bottom here. 10,000 Days is not Tool's best album, I'm going to admit right off. But the track Vicarious is one of their best songs. Some people said it's their best. Mew, a lot of times people will come up and be like, Vicarious is their best song. Haven't seen that meme in a while, but I am not that far from disagreeing. It's a fantastic song. This is definitely their easiest entry point into their albums, I'd say. Where if you start with Vicarious, it kind of gets you in the mood for the rest of the album. Then you got like Zombie, then the 10,000 Days duo. Really good. It's a good album. I'm not gonna say it's perfect because it's not. I honestly think Rosetta Stone is not that great of a song. You can fight me in the comments, but it's a good album. It's got a lot of good points to it. It's heavy. It's really intelligent. Look at that album cover. It's great. It's probably their best album cover. But yeah, totally give this a listen. It's a good entry point into Tool. Then I'd probably say listen to Undertow. Undertow is great. And then you get into the real meat and potatoes of Tool with Anima and Lateralis. I'm still not kind of divided on which of those is my favorite Tool record. But 10,000 Days is nothing to scoff at. Definitely give it a listen. All right, and speaking of Rush with moving pictures on the YYZ intro with the little symbol there, Primus Frizzle Fry in the next column here. Some people would describe it as funk metal. No comment. It's got metal elements. It's got funk elements, but it's just kind of it's fun. It's really weird. Like as you can see with that really gross looking album cover. Don't let that get you down from listening to it. I know it's weird, but totally give this one a listen. The first track, To Defy the Laws of Tradition, has the YYZ intro, and then it sort of drones out and switches into the actual bass riff of the song, and then it goes into this super funky beat. So if you guys don't know, Primus is headed by Les Claypool, one of the best bassists of our generation. He is fantastic. His technique with slap is incredible. The way he's got these like really weird, like honestly ugly bass riffs that like, especially in tracks like DMV off of the album Pork Soda, where it's like this tapping section that's so bizarre. But like then you got like those super heavy snare hits on the drum. It drives the song forward, and the really bizarre lyrics. Frizzle Fry, you got tracks like Too Many Puppies that are actually way smarter than it's led on. Like even though it's called Too Many Puppies and it's about puppies dying, it's about American soldiers in the Middle East, which I'm not gonna get political, but it's an intelligent look at it. So totally listen to that. And then if you like that, maybe listen to Sailing the Seas of Cheese. Some people like that album more. Personally, Frizzle Fry is my favorite. All right, next you got Iron Maiden, The Number of the Beast. Don't let this make you think it's a black metal record or something like that. The screaming on this is like literally 1 point of the album, but it's just really good, kind of funky, heavy metal here. Personally, I think they kind of delve into power metal at some points. A lot of people just describe Iron Maiden as heavy metal, but they're definitely a energetic and powerful sound. Their bass riffs are iconic, especially on the track Number of the Beast. That's my favorite Iron Maiden song. I will play that like just probably once a week. I'll just listen to that song and just be like, yes, so good. Definitely give it a listen. If you can get past the first track, Invaders, sometimes that track is not my cup of tea, but it is a good song. Totally give this album a listen. A lot of people like Power Slave more. I would disagree. It doesn't have Run to the Hills like Iron Maiden does on this album. It doesn't have the title track. I love 22 Acacia Avenue. And a lot of people, their favorite Iron Maiden song is Hallowed Be Thy Name. I would disagree. I like the title track more. But regardless, fantastic listen. All right, the next album we got here is Maggot Brain by Funkadelic. Really, really good entry level psych and funk album pick here. If you guys don't know, Funkadelic and Parliament are like the two like landmark funk groups of the 70s, even till today. They've released albums like up until now. Super good stuff. I'm not super into funk at the moment. I'm trying to get more into Parliament and bands like that. But Maggot Brain is just it's an essential pick here. The track Maggot Brain is very psychedelic. It's really nice. And you got a whole bunch of different influences on the rest of the album. It pretty much goes off without a hitch. I personally think the track Wars of Armageddon is a little weaker, but regardless, really great album. Also, that album cover is super bizarre and it's fun. All right, now we're listening to probably the least accessible album on this whole chart here. You got Electric Wizard's Dope Throne. This is stoner metal, as you can tell by the bong in that album cover there, but such a legendary album. If you're cynical, if you don't like people, listen to this album. There's literally a song on it called "We Hate You." There's no screaming on this album, so if you don't like death growls or the black metal like Nazgul type screaming, definitely give this a listen. The bass work is just gorgeous. It's this rich, like syrupy, distorted low tone that's just fantastic. And this is not the last time I'll be mentioning this album. I love it. If you want sort of an entrance into the darker, more extreme side of metal, this is totally a good pick for you, I'd say. After that, totally listen to Sleep. Sleep's got some amazing picks there. Stoner metal is definitely a good genre to dive into. Now, for the next column, we're starting off at the top with My Bloody Valentine's Loveless. If you heard anyone ever talk about music, you might have heard about this album. It's amazing. It's shoegaze. If you don't know what shoegaze is, it's like heavily distorted alternative rock that's like spacey and dreamy. That's basically how I describe it in one sentence, but this is a fantastic album. It's a little hard to describe, but it's super trippy, and every song sounds different. And I would describe this album as kind of the Tool of shoegaze, or I use the Loveless as a term for a whole bunch of different genres, where you find an album that's quintessential for the genre. It's essentially like the defining album, but it sounds totally different from every other album. This album is so much noisier than anything else that is in the genre. Like Slowdive never quite reaches this noisy level here. But if you like this, totally listen to Slowdive. Totally listen to LSD and The Search for God. There's a lot of different shoegaze bands that made a lot of good material. I could go on and on and on about how much I love this album. Every track on it is spotless. Give it a listen. Absolutely fantastic. All right, this next album here, you've seen this on people's t-shirts. It's Unknown Pleasures by Joy Division. If you know the track Love Will Tear Us Apart, that's a Joy Division song. Quintessential post-punk album. If you like this, then totally listen to Remain in Light by Talking Heads. I know I'm going to get flack for this, but I personally like Speaking in Tongues more. But totally listen to this album. It's moody, it's dark, it's got really nice driving bass riffs. Ian Curtis does a great job on the lyrics. It's a really good jumping point into the post-punk world. All right, next we have American Football, specifically American Football 1. It's one of their self-titled albums. They have several, kind of like Weezer, except they don't color it. They just have a picture of a house here. Yeah, this is the pretty much the most famous math rock or Midwest emo album there is. Obviously, I could also reference Brave Little Abacus here. I could mention Jimmy Eat World. There are plenty of emo groups that are as famous as American Football, but this is like the most important listen. I didn't like it first time I listened to it, but my friend bought it for me on CD, so I listen to it in my car now, and it's really nice. Just if you want something that's a little more low key and not like super like in your face, like just driving, like half the albums on this list are, totally listen to American Football 1. The alternative like rhythms on it that aren't in 4/4, that's just the way I'm going to describe it right now. They're not in a way that's like super hard to keep up with, like a lot of prog is. So totally give it a listen. All right, next we have probably the darkest album on this list, Spiderland by Slint. It's a little hard to access this one. It is on Spotify. It's not that like you can't find it. It's very dark and a little more odd compared to probably anything else you've heard of. If you can get into spoken word, listen to it. I will go to the moon and back about how much I love this album. It's probably in like my top 10 albums ever. Absolutely listen to it. I don't want to spoil how emotionally draining it can get. I personally think it doesn't quite hit the levels as something like Death Consciousness would, but I love Spiderland. I can vouch for it any day of the week. just to show how extreme it gets. After recording the last track, Good Morning Captain, the lead singer, he was apparently sweating bullets. He ran outside and he was like vomiting for like a good couple minutes, and then he just went and he checked himself into a mental hospital for a little bit, and then that was the end of their recording career with a song about like isolation and death. Give it a listen. Super iconic. Next column here, we've got In the Airplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel. Some people like their album On Avery Island more. I only listened to it a couple times, but I need to get more into it before I can make that decision. But really fun album. It's about Jeff Mangum, not Magnum. Some people call him Magnum. It's Mangum, and sort of his perspective on Anne Frank, which sounds bizarre, and believe me, it is. But it's not selfish. It's very much like there's so many like emotional parts of it where he's like, I would have done like anything to like save her. It's a really depressing album, especially on Two Headed Boy Part 2. But it's so pretty. It's really interesting instrumentation here with like the singing saw used, and they're so like warm looking on stage with all their sweaters and hats. Give them a listen. They're a fun group. Also, that's not a potato on her head. That is a drum. A lot of people like to talk about that. It's a drum. And finally, we've got Pink Moon by Nick Drake. Nick Drake tragically killed himself not that long after this album's release in the 70s, but this is a very nice, calming album. It's all guitar and singing, if you can get along with that, which I totally recommend. It's a very pretty album. It's just a shame he didn't get recognition for this album earlier in his life. A lot of people meme this album. I haven't listened to the rest of his discography, but apparently it's pretty good too. You just get a lot of beautiful guitar tones on this album. So, not that much I can say about it right now, but please give it a listen. It's definitely something you want to listen to. Next, we got The Glow Part 2 by Microphones. There is no Glow Part 1 album. There's a song called The Glow Part 1 on a previous album, but they named this album after their track, The Glow Part 2. I think this is the best example of how you can use lo-fi elements to make an album richer and more thought-provoking and just more complex. It basically uses like lo-fi elements to like reach like guitars like ringing, and sometimes they'll do things in like one take where if you hear his voice crack, it's totally intentional there. Well, maybe not, he didn't like mean to do it, but they use that take even though they had other takes. Tracks like Headless Horseman are just so like warm and fuzzy, and you hear the guitars fuzz on like every track here. It's just so beautiful. And then you reach Samurai Sword towards the end. It's just super heavy, like drum hits, just over and over. Very emotional album. Maybe not as much as In the Airplane Over the Sea, but I like it a little bit more. And now we've reaching Hospice by the Antlers. Infamously, Anthony Fantano does not like this record. He gives it less than a 4 out of 10, because I know he reviewed another Antlers record. And then I just compared it from there. It's a whole album from the perspective of people inside a hospital. Is it my favorite album on this list? By no means. I've only listened to it like a couple times, and I'm not fully grasping it. I'm not selling this album right now, but it's a really pretty album. And it's definitely got its like more low-key moments. Are the lyrics super complex? I would say no. But it's definitely a good entry-level thing. Don't scoff at it. Don't like brush it off as just another album. Definitely get a listen. And now we've reached the hip-hop section of my chart here. These are really famous because I'm not as into hip hop as I should be right now, but these are definitely some good entry level hip hop picks. First, you got Good Kid, Mad City. I can vouch for Kendrick Lamar any day of the week. I love this album so much. I think Mad City is probably one of my favorite hip hop tracks like ever. Like nothing goes harder than Mad City or Backseat Freestyle. And the whole concept behind half these tracks, where also including Swimming Pools, where you think it's like a typical rap song where it's like, oh, all rappers do is talk about sex and gang violence and doing drugs. These are about how much he dislikes these ideas. Like Mad City is not about how much he wants to shoot somebody, it's how much he hates the violence around him. Backseat Freestyle is not about him bragging that he has all this money and women. It's about how much he wants to be able to do that and how he's almost like envious of the idea, but he still is appreciating other things in his life during this album. It's a very personal album. It's a very great album. I personally like it more than To Pimp a Butterfly. I'm probably gonna get flack for that, but if you like To Pimp a Butterfly more, power to you. A lot of people like it more. But Good Kid, Mad City's fantastic album. Give it a listen. Right below that is My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West. Everyone's heard it. If you don't like it, like, what are you doing? Like, if you like that opening, Dark Fantasy is so good. Power, great song. Some people brush off parts of Runaway. I don't think it's the best track on the album, but it's still really good. It's very emotional. It's probably one of the most personal points Kanye gets on the whole album. Great use of sampling. Totally recommend it. Totally give it a listen. Next, you got Taboo by Denso Curry. The only thing I don't recommend about this is buying it on CD because it's in 3 sections that are not that long each, so you just got to keep flipping it over and over again. But they do all kind of have their own sort of idea here, where it's maybe it's not like the greatest hip hop album of all time. It's actually one of my favorites. You got tracks like Clout Cobain, Perks goes so hard, easily one of the greatest disses I've ever heard in my life. You got Sirens, which is it's a very personal song. He used part of one of the verses on Sirens on his cover of Bulls on Parade, which was famous on the Like a Version video on YouTube. But give it a listen. It's a good album. There's really no way around it. It's just a really fun listen. It's thought provoking. It's not your most casual listen. Like, there are points where he's like yelling much more than he is like more low key. There's energy behind the whole thing, but his like more softer moments are great too. And there's a track like Clout Cobain where it's a very personal topic and it's very different. It does remind me a little bit of swimming pools. The whole idea is that Clout Cobain is like, when you do things for clout, people can die, which definitely harkens back to Lil Peep and other rappers that have passed away recently. Rest in peace. All right, and the last album on this list, Ex-Military by Death Grips. If don't scoff at me, because I know it's not a typical hip hop pick. It's definitely an entry level pick for Death Grips. If you like this album, listen to other stuff, and you might like their other stuff. No guarantee, but it's a great pick. Tracks like Spread Eagle Across the Block, Tachyon are legendary. The opening track, Beware, with the Charles Manson sample, it's just legendary. Till we give it a listen. So I know this was a little longer than I wanted to, but I just wanted to show how passionate I am about each of these records. I recommend every one of them. I hope you guys get into music. If you like these, DM me on Instagram or Twitter or just anywhere. I will totally recommend more albums. This is my passion. I love doing it, but definitely take some time. And I don't even say you have to listen to all of these, but like, I'm gonna challenge you guys to listen to let's say at least 4 of these. And if you like them, go ahead. Like, definitely listen to The Bends. Definitely listen to Nonagon Infinity and The Airplane Over the Sea. 100%. Totally great things to listen to. It's just by no means a fully comprehensive list of like entire genres at all. It's just a good place to just start it out. All right, so that's just all I wanted to talk about today. I hope you guys have a good day. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll definitely see you guys in another video. Thanks. Bye.